Good morning, everyone. So, I'm going to take you through a little bit of Insurtech landscape. We've just been rebranding, and I hope you like my title, because it's true. Innovation is your insurance against irrelevance. So just to give you a bit of context, most people know me as CEO of SartupBootcamp Insurtech. I started the program in 2015 when Insurtech was just starting to be a buzzword. But I'm part of a bigger venture called Reino, and Fermin highlighted a little bit earlier that here in LATAM, we work under the name of Innovista. So since we started, which was in 2010, we actually accelerated over 727 startups across a number of different industries: transport, energy, fintech. We have probably around 150 accelerated startups within our portfolio. I have 60 accelerated startups within our Insurtech portfolio. We are working with organizations from all around the globe. We have around 190 partners across 27 locations, so ecosystem works. I think you heard that from Ignacio earlier. To build a great connection with startups, you have to build an ecosystem. So we have offices around 25 locations, and we're working with a lot of entrepreneurs. We are entrepreneurs ourselves, but we also have great talent as part of the network, also helping us solve big problems. So most people know me because of Startup Bootcamp. I already mentioned some of those numbers. Usually you hear the startups in startup world that 80% of startups fail, 20% maybe succeed. Within our portfolio, 80% of startups actually succeed. And it represents now around 1.2 billion in valuation. From the corporate innovation side, which is rainmaking, we actually also have built businesses, and we have exited a few of them. Some of you know of a company called Relayer, which was acquired by a big company called Munich Re. We actually accelerated Relayer in 2013. We invested in Relayer then, and we exited the company just recently for 300 million, thanks to Munich Re. So let me take you through a little bit of Insurtech landscape. First, I would like to start with the definition. The well-defined Insurtech is technology-enabled innovation, which allows a business to transform their business models, their processes, their applications, and their product and services. And the change they are making can result in a drastic transformational change within insurance. Very important definition. Today, there is approximately 3,000 startups globally within Insurtech. Most of them, yes, come from the US, with 40%, 39% coming from, the US, so 43% come from North America, with 39 to 40% coming from United States. The next biggest location is Europe, with 29%. The largest number of Insurtech coming from the UK, with 13%. Germany and France following with 5%. Then we have Asia, with 19%, with India and China representing 6 to 5% to date. Then, as we saw from Fermin's presentation, Insurtech is growing in LATAM and the South Hemisphere, with percentages which are changing every day. And so some of my numbers are a bit outdated, even though I actually put those numbers on page at the beginning of this month. So what has happened in Insurtech? So actually, Insurtech word was coined by AXA, and that was at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And myself, I decided to leave the big corporate world at the time and decided to start working with fintech companies and then Insurtech around that time. I thought what was happening in fintech had to happen in insurance. So today, we have 21 billion, which has been invested in insurtech startups to date. And you can see this big spike in 2015, right? This is small compared to fintech. I mean, there are billions which have been now invested in fintech startups to date. But one thing which is interesting around those numbers is that last year, 6 billion were invested in insurtech startups, the second highest number since 2015. And we estimate that will be approximately the same this year. The other number which is interesting is that the market is maturing and we are going through a second wave. In 2015, we had around 400 startups coming to market. Last year, only 77 new startups came to market, which means investment went into Series A, B, C type organizations. So I thought, let's look at, therefore, a few business models. I thought, let's just look at unicorns, because hopefully unicorns are here to stay. So I've selected 5 of them. I'm sure you know them all. Starting with Zhonghan from China, which is one of those massive online, internet-first insurance retailer. What is interesting from Zhonghan perspective is they IPO'd at 1.5 billion last year, and their valuation is now around 24 billion. What is key about Zhonghan's business model is they are focusing on ecosystem. So it's all about ecosystem first. I will go into that business model a bit more in detail later. Then Oscar from the US, probably one of the first startup coming to market actually with Zenefit in 2015, from a name viewpoint, because they were created in 2012. They actually today have a valuation of 3.2 billion. And their goal is to humanize healthcare. And again, an internet-first business model, focusing on healthcare and the network effect. Lemonade, coming out in 2015, which has for objective to challenge home insurance with artificial intelligence and challenging the status quo as to how we sell insurance. Main focus is millennial, and they can settle, as we know, a claim in 3 seconds. Their focus is internet first and gig economy. Then Root, which surpassed Metromile from a valuation viewpoint just recently. It's using things which we have done in Europe for a very long time, usage-based insurance and telemetry, putting little boxes in the car, or now using that on smartphone. Is to make actually using the data coming out of around people and the car, and using that data to make the premium much more flexible. And Policy Bazaar, coming from India, which has been created actually a long time ago, but still considered as insurtech today. And it's about distribution in digitizing the broker channel. So Fermin talked about the LATAM market earlier. As we know, insurtech is here as well and growing at a very fast pace. There is 71 startups. I had around 70 from my database, so Fermin's database is much more updated than mine. But as you can see, what is interesting around the patterns in LATAM is it's starting much first with distribution. Like most countries coming into insurtech, the first area which tend to be disrupted is the distribution channel with much more customer-centric and digitized engagements. With Compara Online, for example, which raised up to 39 million. In Colombia, I think you have 10 now. As I said, I checked my database just a few weeks ago, had 8. And the main reason is for the very, very early stage startups which have not raised money, sometimes they are not updated as fast on those databases as others. I have actually highlighted 3. Again, 3 different, because quite a few were in around distribution. You have starting seeing some transformation around internet-first businesses, so looking at the full end-to-end value chain for a sliver of insurance to do one thing, and then a virtual assistant using bots and artificial intelligence. So what is really happening right now in insurance? I'll start with segmentation. Today, there are 2.6 billion millennials between the age of 22 and 39, now probably around 40, which actually are in the market today. They generate 2.45 trillion in annual spending. They are actually the group with the highest influencing purchasing power out there. And this, by 2035, is going to reach 22 trillion of annual revenue. Very important segment. And I can see often a lot of insurers trying to see how they are going to address the need of this group of people. But not just looking at the millennials, you have actually today 5 different segments within the working population or around us, starting with Gen Z, who today are around 20. The digital native, they do not want to talk to you on the phone. Don't try to call them. They will not answer. I've tried. And I have many of them on my team. The key thing is that you need to actually start understanding the need of that segment if you want to serve it well. I already covered the millennial, but then Gen X, which I am a Gen X. The interesting thing about Gen X, and I think many of you in the room, is technically we are Gen Xer, or just X millennials, in the sense that we also like using technologies. Then we have our baby boomers, our parents, often, who actually are looking at using a much more omni-channel, diversified way of accessing product and services, and then the silent generation. The thing which is important on this slide is that the segments which are going to be the most important by 2025 are your digital-enabled group. So your product and services needs to be adapted and customized to meet the needs of those people. So as I mentioned, my Gen Z wanting to be Zuckerberg, well, it doesn't want to talk to you, and so needs a digital-first mobile experience. The millennials are interesting because they are going to occupy 75% of the working population by 2025. And what they want is to buy products and services which mean something to them. So purpose is important to millennials. The Gen X want actually experiences to make their life easier that start from the minute they leave their home. We are doing some work around travel right now. It's fascinating how you can actually reconstruct the travel experience. Not with insurance, actually. Insurance is about risk management. But travel, the experience of travel, by really understanding what is happening and then looking at where insurance plays the best within that experience. The baby boomers today, actually, is for those who are working on, are often advisors, they're on boards, and they actually needs as well protection, which makes sense to them. And the silent generation, it's all about wealth preservation and health prevention. So how do we address that? Snapshots of some of the work we are doing. I just focus on Gen Z and millennials, and looking at the stats which come out of the research. By doing this, you start seeing how to reshape experiences to make them far more aligned to that group's experience, demanded experience. So for example, they want to, as I said, engage on mobile devices. The best way to communicate with them actually is with pictures, not, as I said, with phone conversations, stories with videos. They also leverage a lot of the social media, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram is one of the biggest, actually. And if you want to convince them, you actually have to consider deal-making, discounts. It's why often a lot of the new offerings are looking at how they can actually gamify things to engage millennials. And lastly, You can't just stop when you sold something. You need to do something post-sales. As you can see, some of those numbers are high, some are lower. But when you start putting the things together, you actually start seeing something, which means the experience that insurance provides to millennials today is not the right one. So whilst you have to understand the customer segment, another thing which is happening around us is that there are a lot of drivers affecting us out there. I've listed 10. I will just cover 3, but all of them are coming and together to actually affect the way we do things out there, including not only the fact that we're all connected globally through the devices we use, the technology which is out there, but also knowing, as I mentioned from one of our segments, the millennial, that with all this technology we need as well to care for others. So let's look at the first one I wanted to look at, which is hyper-personalization. So the key thing about hyper-personalizing products and services is that you start engaging in a very different way. You have to create flawless and frictionless experiences. The touch button era. And that's where, I guess, the presentation which was earlier become very important, because you have to use real-time behavioral data to understand how to profile your customers, understand when to talk to them, why to talk to them, and the type of product and services to offer to them. And why is that happening? I'm sure you've heard those words before. Google, Netflix, Amazon, all those great brands actually have transformed our expectations as to the way we are serviced. The fact we mention them is not just by mentioning the names, it's just they have made de facto personalization as part of our daily lives. And so how insurance is doing that today is by hyper-segmenting, so really understand micro-segments within bigger segment groups, ensuring that they are delivering timely and relevant products and services, but also applying emotional, experiential, and service-led content to what they do. So it can't just be very statistical and quantitative. Now the experience needs to move to a much more emotional level. And that's why on-demand, usage-based, and frictionless experiences are becoming more and more prevalent. Social consciousness comes from the fact that we are now living a little bit more in a gig economy. Some research from PwC estimate that that market by 2025 will be around 335 billion in size in terms of dollars. So the numbers I have here come from a research between Deloitte and Lloyd's of London. There were, based on that research, at least 500 million people who shared something with a peer, another 680 million which consume within the sharing economy environment. Then when you start looking at the one who started insuring themselves, 57% insured themselves, 37% insured themselves when it was a context of an Airbnb, home environment, and 49% in the context of sharing car, like BlaBlaCar, Uber, Lyft. So there is quite a significant market coming up from this gig economy. And why is that happening is our consumption model is changing. We are happy to borrow, to rent things from our friends. And our friends are, when we actually starting borrowing big things, likely to want to see them insured. That means that subscription and consumption models are going to change. And also insurance models will change consequently. The third area I wanted to cover is a move from reactive offer to preventative services. One of the leaders in that area is AXA, which has moved their strategy from payer to partner. And the whole strategy is about how we can actually make investment in health, but in health startup and young businesses, but also change my relationship with my members, my customers, by preventing things to happen before they happen. So again, to be able to do that, there's a lot of usage of data and analytics. So AI become extremely important to allow that profiling and understanding good health behavior vis-a-vis bad ones. And that goes into then precision underwriting, precision claims, being able to alert a member before things happen, and also some technologies which are coming out there to address some of these patterns will be RoboCoach, gamified experiences, nudges, and rewards. So as I said, I wanted to cover a little bit of insight, therefore, when you start looking at the trends, looking at Insurtech, around business models. So can someone in the room tell me what is common to the three companies? Anybody want to try? I promise you it's a cool one. What does Ford do? What Tesla do? Good, still cars. What Dyson do? Dyson enters the electric car market. Who would have known that a manufacturer of Hoovers, right, would actually go in the car market? So be careful. You do not know who your competition might be and where it's going to come from. The other point is that Tesla has decided to do their own insurance as of a few weeks ago. So Tesla is going to work with Liberty Mutual to put together an electric car insurance because it's too expensive right now to insure Teslas, and it's breaking their business models. And Liberty Mutual has decided to work with Tesla to launch an electric car insurance product. So imagine if all car manufacturers went into insurance as well. So anyway, I've done some analysis. I looked at the most valuable companies out there, and then I looked at the most innovative companies out there as well. And as you can see from the list, you have the usual suspect, right? Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet. So those are numbers as of March 2019, so very, very recent. And then when you start looking at the most innovative ones, going backward, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft being the top four. Then going down, you have Facebook and the like of Johnson & Johnson. So we have one company in health, Nudge Purchase, we heard this morning, which actually made to the top 10. And then one finance company. So what's happening here? What do you see or not see from that chart? We're at an insurance conference. No insurance companies. Allianz is around 24th. No, actually 33. Allianz is around 33, and AXA, I think, around 30 on the most innovative list, and that is Forbes for BCG research. But therefore, there is something to be done, right, in the industry. I think we have a great opportunity. So now, when we look at those most innovative companies, I'm now going to shift a little bit the conversation. What you find is that they are looking at innovation competencies. So often, we talk about operating model, product design, underwriting, claims, servicing. What those companies are doing is looking at the problem slightly differently. They are looking at what they want to be around what are considered the innovation drivers which are there. So as you can see, personalization, user-based, usually fitting with pricing, collaborative ecosystems are usually top ones. I have Tesla and Adidas probably not using usage-based pricing just yet, but who knows, they may do so in the future. So definition of our innovation differentiators. So personalization, it's all about tailoring, customizing. In insurance, it's about unbundling. So we've designed an insurance product for one European insurer recently, and it's growing at the moment at 50% per month. And we had to slow growth. What we have done, we have completely unbundled the experience for the millennial segment using some of the criteria I've highlighted earlier, which is developing an experience which is very much based on how millennial wants to engage, which is videos and social media and all this great stuff. Usage-based, usually around pricing. I mentioned, based on my personalization trends, a lot of it lies into subscription model and new consumption models as well. So it's to make it easier for people to buy in small chunk, per hour, per month, rather than buying the whole lot. And collaborative ecosystem is about looking at your core competencies and actually allowing other partners within the ecosystem to do things you are not good at doing. So I've decided to look at 2 examples for each of those different criteria, innovation criteria. I looked at one example which is not in insurance and another one which is in insurance. I believe you are going to get the slides. They are a little bit heavy on text. I'm not going to read the text. You are going to get the slide at a later stage. But actually look at what they are doing to actually become leaders in what they are doing right now. So Tesla, in the automotive sectors, as we know, today valuation around 34 billion. And what they want is to advance technology and put it everywhere. The interesting thing about Tesla's mission is to make actually transport sustainable. And their core market was actually to focus on the mass market, to allow everybody to actually be able to drive. But what they had to do is start with the early adopters. And as you can see, for their first criteria in designing their business model, they focus on expensive no matter what, meaning that when they designed their first product, which was the sports car, the Tesla Roadster, they were only startups. They could not mass produce the product. They were just entering the market with their new technology, and so they had to make it expensive. So their target market was the early adopter. So being clear on the market you are going after is important. Then they are disrupting the way they are selling the product, which probably goes to our broker channel in insurance. They decided to actually go direct to the consumer, to actually be able to refine their product consistently. So they are owning their sales channel. And that allows them to actually respond continuously to the customer and refine that car and actually see what models, new models they can actually launch. Personalized services, they actually are developing service centers in various locations. In France, to actually go back to station I have comment, they actually have created alignment with different petrol stations across the whole of France where you can actually charge your Tesla. So depending on which countries you go to, they have different models. But they also have the Tesla Ranger, the technicians, who are there to go to your home to repair your car, but also can repair your car by just getting the data from your car from their own office without even touching your car. And lastly, the Supercharger Network. As I mentioned, in France, they are a little bit everywhere now in our petrol stations, but a car can now be charged in 30 minutes. So what they are doing is trying to disrupt the way cars are being sold, cars are being manufactured, but also how you service the customer. One thing Elon Musk says in one of these quotes is, he knows it's going to take time to actually do this, to use the right technology and to make it mass market, because he's disrupted a 150-year-old market. We are trying to disrupt a 330 years market, right? Which was launched in insurance in Lloyd's of London many years back. So in insurance, I selected Oscar. As I mentioned, Oscar is aiming to disrupt the healthcare market by humanizing health. The way they are going about that It's mobile first, so everything is on the mobile. And even the price, we heard about transparency earlier, the price is made transparent to the customer. High touch, they're actually working with telemedicine. They have also within their network personal care. Every member gets 3 concierge and 1 nurse taking care of them before they call the doctor, which are available 24/7, to actually identify symptoms and provide cures. They also integrated vertically with doctors and hospitals. And the way they drive stickiness for people to engage with them all the time is by creating that reward mechanism, which I mentioned earlier, discount by if you do your steps, you get a discount at the end of your year. They are developing other gamification techniques, but that is one of the main ones they've implemented recently. In the users-based environment, I selected Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce do not do cars now. They sold the brand to Tata. They actually are refocusing on the engines. And what is interesting with their proposition is they've decided to create a power by the hour model where they enable people buying aircraft to not pay for the engine or the aircraft whole. They just pay for the service based on a subscription price. If they do well, Rolls-Royce get more revenue for their services. What they have done is also use real-time data to service those customers and making sure that when a plane has a problem as it flies, there's a team on the ground able to repair that flight immediately when it lands so that it can go back in the air. An airplane on the ground is actually a wasted asset. They also have to optimize risk transfer. They've moved the risk from the airplane owner to Rolls-Royce. And through their maintenance service, they're able to improve and increase the life of the assets. As they are part of the circular economy, a clear goal of them is to actually reduce waste and to optimize resource efficiency on replacing what needs to be replaced within an engine. So our insurance parallel will be Root. As I said, one of our unicorns in the auto telemetry space. What is interesting with Root is that they use smartphone to do what they are doing. I worked on the first telematics project with Aviva in 2000, and the reason why it didn't go anywhere was because there were too much data. I also worked around telemetry with, more recently, past 10 years, in the UK, where telemetry was around young drivers, because young drivers used to be charged a lot of money to actually drive their first car. And what you find is that we had to put an ODB in the car. Now, we've moved things to mobile devices, which allows Root to provide a price which is not the same from users to users or drivers to users, not using historical data. People just need to switch on all these great things, the tracker features we have on our phone, including accelerometers, gyroscope, global navigators. We have so much stuff on our phone, you would not believe. That enables them, combined with their algorithm, to define the price for the driver. And then they have this persistent monitoring. If you leave it open, you can actually get refined scoring or refined pricing, but you don't have to. After 2 weeks, they can give you a price, and you can actually switch it off. The key thing about Root compared to Metromile, which was probably the first one coming to market, is that actually it's expanding very fast across the US. So my last example here is around collaborative ecosystem. I decided to go for Alibaba. We all know Alibaba from China, 470 billion valuation today, not small. But the key thing is that their business model is around customer to customer, business to customer, and business to business, and digitizing that whole experience digitally. They are actually been reinventing China's e-commerce market and the whole value chain around retail. And how they have done that is first the ecosystem, they're getting the business and the consumer to interact much more easily with one another, the platform, What they have done is when you look at the business buyers, they get a lot of tools and resources to refine their business and make it more usable and really understand how to serve their customers. When they talk about smart business, they think about delivering similar business goals between participants of the ecosystem using digital data, which allows this group of people to actually make sure, the seller, to make sure they understand the customer needs and therefore always refine the product and services they are selling. And lastly, is continuous learning. They have now developed around 7 innovation center, research center, where they do a lot of things around security, cybersecurity, AI, machine learning. And so they are continuously learning to actually always improve the ecosystem and the way they do things. One thing Ming Zhan from Alibaba said is that what you can see from all those examples is that all those companies are internet-first businesses. And the 7 companies which are the most valuable out there are actually 5 from China, 5 from the US and 2 from China. So, and the value has been only created in the past 20 years. So what could that mean actually for an industry which is insurance? My last example here is Zhonghan. As I mentioned, a 1.5 billion IPO company, now valued at 24 billion. They are designing embedded ecosystems. What is the most interesting about Zhonghan is that they have today 460 million customers, wrote 5.8 billion policies. They are writing 1/3 of the whole of China's policies, insurance policies right now. And they have developed 5 ecosystems with 300 ecosystem partners. They are first focusing on the millennial. Most millennials bought their first insurance policy with Zhonghan. The average policy is around $2 to $4. And most of those buyers have 5 to 7 policies. It's all technology enabled. They call it the ABCD strategy. Artificial intelligence, cloud, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. And they are able to produce one product in just 10 days. So they are reinventing how insurance is done in the value chain. To be able to do that, you need a lot of technologies. Those are the technology enablers that you need to consider. And that means when you look at insurance, you have to go beyond Insurtech. You have to look at a lot of different technology buckets which are listed here. So just a reflection for you. I just looked at 3 of these innovation disruptors. There are many more. I've listed 3 others here. What are going to be the one you are going to select? I'm done.